When we think about growing and scaling our agency, we know that there's a couple things we have to solve for. We got to solve for landing clients, for delivering great results for those clients and knocking it out of the park for them. And then we've got to retain the clients long term. And ultimately, we've got to put the systems, the procedure, and the team in place so that we can scale. And there's lots of moving parts and components to that. What is it that you think you need to work on most right now in the agency? If you had to think about those three key pillars, is it the landing of clients consistently? Is it the delivering of the results? Is it the retention? Is it all of it? Is it the scale? If you've already got clients and stuff coming in, but you need to free yourself up a little bit more. Karen and Lynn, it's about sales, so it's landing clients. Guys, you got a lot on with me here, so please let me know into the chat. Graham got a deal from it. Sales, landing clients, landing and delivery, says Alejandro. Jeff says landing clients. Okay, good. Today's session is going to be predominantly on that focus, but it's good to know once we solve for landing clients, we've got to focus on the other pillars as well. When you think about how you're getting clients in your agency today, and I'm going to try and give you guys some thought exercises while we do this stuff, what's working right now? Is it referrals? Is it Facebook ads? Is it networking? Is it cold email? Like when you think about how you're landing most of your clients today, what is it for you? I'm just going to scan through this. Let's see. Josh says, Nate says referrals. Mary's doing it through webinars. That's cool. I love that. Mark through referrals and networking. Karen is from webinars and ads and LinkedIn. Social blast referrals. Anya, live events. Alejandro, DMs, like hitting the DMs. Josh, referrals and networking. Fantastic. All right, awesome. So we all need to have a healthy mix of like how we get clients and a lot of that stuff, right? We think about the way we get clients in terms of our growth system, which I'll unpack a little bit, but what usually happens, regardless of what mix you've got in place today, is you wind up having to chase prospects down, right? And especially if you're leaning heavily into cold email, or even if you're leaning heavily into Facebook ads and you're just doing an ad that gets a little bit of attention, like they'll give you a couple minutes of their time, but you're chasing, right? You're like, hey, I think I can help you. Hey, I'd like to get a couple minutes of your time. Hey, let me show you how we've helped others in the past. The other challenge is when you wind up in somebody's appointment calendar because of chase, there winds up being a hard sell. Like they're like, I'll give you a couple minutes of your time, but you better convince me. Like you better have something super compelling. And that doesn't put you in a very powerful position, right? So naturally, if they don't look at you as an expert and they're like, hey, I'll give you a couple minutes of my time, and their guard is up, they're going to have price pushback. They're going to be like, yeah, your thing's $5,000 a month or $3,000 a month or $1,000 a month, whatever it is. That seems a little bit high. I don't know like how good you are. I don't really believe that you can do that for me. And a lot of times when it comes to landing clients, just type me. Sometimes it feels like you're pushing a heavy rock up a hill. You're making calls, you're sending DMs, you're creating content, you're running ads. Just type me in the chat if sometimes it feels like this is a heavy lift to get to a place where I'm going to ever get consistent clients. Graham says me, Jennifer says me. Yeah, I think all of us at some level. And what we want to do, and what this monthly webinar method is designed to do, is to help you shift from chasing clients and from having to push that rock up the hill to start to position yourself as the expert, to start to position yourself as the thought leader so clients start coming to you pre-positioned to buy. And the whole client acquisition process we teach here in Seven Figure Agency is the agency growth system, right? And it's the things we want to be doing daily, the things we want to be doing monthly, and the things we want to be doing quarterly to get enough strategy sessions, to get enough appointments so that we can hit our sales goals and we can hit our sales targets. And then we've got to have our appointment funnel and our sales process so that we can convert those deals into sales. And then we've got to deliver world-class results and retain the clients long-term. How many of you guys are at seven figures? Just type 7 if you're already at 7 figures, or no if you're not there yet. But you're like, I know I'm striving there. I'm going to get to that 7-figure level eventually. All right, so a lot of you guys kind of like, not there yet. Harp, Alejandro, Ed, Mary, and eventually says Harp, fantastic, right? Like we can get there. And we know that the 7-figure agency model if you're charging between $1,500 and $2,000 per month for whatever your program is, then if you can land like 3 to 5 clients every single month and retain them at least 97%, you can get to 7 figures in the next 12 months. Every single buddy on this call. And if you're already at 7 figures, then you can add an additional 7 figures. Really, we're just talking about 3 to 5 clients per month. What do we have to do in order to get 3 to 5 clients per month? We have to have enough appointment flow, enough opportunities in play, and we have to actually be able to convert those opportunities into sales. And I've looked at this for now hundreds of agencies and drilled down on their client acquisition process. And in almost every case, if you can get to a place where you're consistently getting 15 appointments with qualified appointments, prospects in your industry, that gives you enough deal flow to land 3 or 5 clients. That gives you enough deal flow to get to 7 figures. And these are all the things we found. If we can do cold outreach and Facebook ads and content on a consistent basis, and then every month do 1 podcast and 1 webinar, and then every quarter we get out to a live event or conference, when you do that consistently, it becomes very hard not to be able to hit that target, right? They're just doing enough activity to bring that into reality. And so we're not going to do the whole growth system today. Today's really just going to be focused on the monthly webinar method. And how do we do that? How do we structure that? Why do we do it? And how can we get the most bang for our buck from implementing that strategy? So let's go in the comments. If you're ready to get into it, just type "let's go." All right, Mary, Josh, fantastic. Josh Wheeler on the call. A couple of you guys asked, did we do a workbook? Of course, we did a workbook. You've got a workbook with all the details. You can access it at sevenfigureagency.com/webinar-workbook. And of course, members, this is in the member portal with all of the swipes and deploys. But if you pull that up, it's going to ask you to make a copy. I think it's going to, let me just check. Does it ask you to make a copy or does it give you the actual file? All right, so it gives it to you here. What you're going to want to do is go file and then make a copy. And I'm not going to get all the way into the workbook right now, but I do want to show you what you have because this is very valuable. It says not found. Click the link in the chat that Jeremy just gave you guys. That should open. It did not open. All right, I'm going to copy it myself. Here, guys, use this link instead. Type open if that. Okay, now I see it once you guys get it. I'm glad we checked that. sevenfigureagency.com/webinar-workshop. That's it. If it says workshop, it's dead. All right, so there's a lot in here. I've given you the actual pages of our webinar funnel. I've given you the visual of it, a full checklist that we'll go through today in terms of every month. How do you pick the topic? How do you structure it? How do you modify it to match your specific industry? I've also given you, so look on over my shoulder. For those of you that use high level, just type high level in the chat or HL. I've given you the full high level snapshot and like literally me building it out for you. How do you update the landing page, the confirmation page, the follow-up sequences, all of that stuff. So that's all there for you. And then I've also given you swipe files. So I've given you the actual like presentation template in Google Slides, as well as like the modifiable graphics that you need with recordings of each one of those sessions. And then the syndication playbook, which is after the workshop. What do we do with it? How do we syndicate it? I see Alec dropped a flyer. I love that. Just give me an emoji if you're excited to have this asset. Like this is a very valuable asset that is going to massively shortcut this implementation for you guys. All right. I love the emojis coming in. All right. We will get into that workbook more as we go, but I just wanted to make sure you guys all know that is there for you guys to get into. So when it comes to marketing our agencies, here's what I typically see. We wind up with leads, right? We wind up with people we've cold emailed because we were like, okay, I'm going to go after my niche. I'm going to scrape a list or I'm going to buy a list from Coldlytics, and we get that into whatever instantly, or we get it into high level. And then ideally we join the association. We're like, okay, I'm going to go after this niche. I'm going to join the association, and I get names and phone numbers and emails of those people. And maybe we do some ads, right? We run Facebook ads, Meta ads. We do some Google ads, and we get these leads. Right? And sometimes we run a little workflow sequence and they've gotten some emails from us, but regardless of how forward thinking you are, probably you get 5, 10, maybe 20 emails that go out. And then that data, that list just starts to sit dormant in the CRM. Just type dormant if you feel like you've got some dormant opportunities over the years where you've done the things, but they're not fresh, they're not new, they're not being nurtured. I know this was our issue at Plumbing HVAC SEO. Like, it was like we did a lot of list grabbing, a lot of prospecting, but a lot of it was just sitting there dormant. So Harp's doing something there. I want to see it. Ed says so many. I'm going to wait for a couple of you guys to comment for me in the chat because I do want to make this engaging. Just someone drop dormant into the chat for me if you've got some dormant opportunities. Thanks, guys. Awesome. All right. Yeah. And I remember, and if I'm dating myself with this, but I remember being at a Dan Kennedy super conference. Just like Dan Kennedy here in the chat. If you were like, you should all study Dan Kennedy at some level. But at this time, like, Dan Kennedy was the direct response guy. He ran a super conference. He ran the info conference, and we would all go every single year and learn and write notes. And I was at the super conference, and Frank Kern was doing the presentation. He was talking about how they were growing their company and what they were doing. And Frank Kern at the time was one of Dan's superstar case study clients. And he said something that really resonated with me. And what he said was, your money isn't in the list. We all have a list. We have all of these list contacts. The money's not in the list. It's in the relationship with the list. So you could have 1 million prospects on your database, but until they know you, like you, trust you, believe in you, have been influenced by you in some way, it's not doing anything for you. It's useless. And I was like, that's really a smart idea. So how do we develop the relationship with the list? How do we develop that know and trust so that we can continuously get deal flow from it? And that idea really sparked this idea, which was, in order to develop that relationship, we've got to touch the database, right? If you've got 100 prospects or 1,000 prospects, if you're not reaching out to them on email, on social, on the phone, at least a couple of times per week, they're not hearing from you. They're not seeing you. Even with some of you guys might feel like, man, I can't email my list 3 times per week. If you email them 3 times per week, you'd be lucky if they see you once, because they're getting so much other email. They're getting so much other communication. So we've got to touch them multiple times per week, but then we've also got to add value. It can't just be, hey, you want more leads? Hey, you want to show up in AI search? Hey, you want to generate better results? You have to be giving them something that's useful, that they're like, okay, that was interesting. That was useful, so that we can nurture them and ultimately offer help. And so this is where we want to get to. And the monthly webinar method is the shortcut for that process. And I'm going to walk you through why that is. But I found that if we want to touch the database a lot of times, if we want to create great content, if we want to be consistently positioning ourselves in a prolific way, just one webinar per month can check just about all of those boxes. And the reason is, it does 2 things. Doing one webinar per month is going to help you grow your database. In other words, it's going to help you bring brand new people into your world that would have never found you before. But it also gives you that reason to nurture the database, to touch the database again and again, that 2 to 3 times per week in a non-obtrusive, non-obnoxious way. So it grows your database because every time you do a webinar, you can promote it, but then it also can be used for inbound discovery. If we take a webinar on a topic and then we put it up on YouTube and we put it up on iTunes and we post about it on social media, your prospects can find it and then enter your world, enter your funnel. It's great inbound marketing. But also, if we're doing a webinar every single month, then we've got a reason to email the database. Hey, I've got this workshop coming up on this topic. And if it's useful, they're like, hey, okay, I'll participate. And then when it's done, like, you can take the recording of it and you can email it out. Just type yes if not, you don't take anything else away from today's workshop, but okay, if I can just consistently show up once a month, it's going to force me to create new content, and it's going to force me to touch my database more frequently, which is going to give me the ability to develop that relationship with the database. All right, I see a lot of you guys saying yes, great. All right, that landed. And so what I want to walk you through today is a systematic process for creating new content to nurture your database and to position yourself as the thought leader in your industry. And so the monthly webinar lever, really, it's touching your database, invite them to the webinar, the replay right before it starts, and the replay after it's done. And then when we do this right, it's going to create multiple streams of new content. The live webinar that you're actually show up for and deliver amazing value, the recorded version that's going to go up on YouTube. It's going to go up on iTunes. The transcript that's going to go on your website is a long form piece of content, the slide share, PDF upload, as well as the short form clips that we can now create with platforms like Opus.pro and GetMuch. And so literally one webinar per month is going to give you at least 3 touches to the database and at least 6 unique pieces of content that multiplies on a month-over-month basis. So one of the members that is just an amazing example of this, and really I could call out a lot of the members in the community that have grasped onto this concept and done it really well, but Chris Rodriguez, I don't know, just like Chris, if you're a fan of Chris, because she's a legend in the community, she adds so much value. But if I zoom back to when we first came in contact with Chris, she was doing about $30,000 in monthly recurring revenue. She works with martial arts studios, and she was trying to build the company. She's trying to feel like, what do I do to position our agency in this space to continue to grow? And she did everything. Like, if you look at Chris, she's the massive action taker. But if you look over the last 7 years, I guess it is now, she does the monthly webinar every single month. And if you look at her website, you look at her YouTube channel, she does it exactly the way I'm talking, right? Great topic, heavily promoted, nice graphics, all of the checkpoints, and then fully syndicates it. What's cool is if you look at Chris's business today, she's now doing over $350,000 in monthly recurring revenue, almost 10x from when she started. And she will tell you that one of the biggest drivers of that is the monthly webinar and the consistency around this topic. So let's get into it. I really want to show you, now that I've painted the picture and we've looked at Chris as an example, I want to walk you through 6 keys, and then we're actually going to start building this out today. Key number 1 is we want to set up the appointment funnel and offer the shortcut. So when I say appointment funnel, the webinar, yes, we want to have a place where we can drive people to say, here's the topic we're talking about, and they click the button and they enter their details to get registered. But we also can use that as a back door to get them straight onto our appointment calendar, to get them straight into appointment. So we want to set up that funnel, that 2-step process where we can shortcut that for them. And in your workbook, I've given you the flow for this, a visual for how people go through these steps. And I'll walk you through each of the pages and we'll look at it in detail. But you just do this every single month, right? We're going to promote the topic. We're going to get them to register. We're going to move them straight to appointments. We're going to load up the replay. And then we're going to set up all the follow-up sequences and workflows to warm those prospects up over time. And the hack that I discovered probably 1 year into doing webinars on a consistent basis was they don't even have to show up for your live workshop for it to be beneficial. You can get appointments just by promoting the webinar. And this was a massive unlock for me as I was doing this and thinking about it, because your confirmation page after they register, rather than saying, hey, thanks for registering, click here to add it to the calendar, assuming that they're actually going to come to the webinar, assuming they're actually going to watch the whole thing and then make an offer at the very end, what we could do is say, hey, thanks for registering for the webinar. It's going to be awesome. You're going to get lots of great insights. But if you're like most plumbing companies, you're just looking for someone that can execute this for you, that can get you the outcomes. And if that's you, I'd like to offer you the opportunity where we can sit down one-on-one. We'll look at your current online marketing, show you where there's room for improvement and how we can help you implement this immediately. And that little shortcut from promote the webinar to people right after they've registered, saying, hey, forget the webinar. Let's go ahead and schedule a time to meet now, is where almost all of our opportunity flow comes in on a monthly basis, right? So what I want to land there is a lot of us vex over, okay, I want to do a webinar. I got to get the perfect slides. I got to get the perfect script. I got to get the perfect everything to make it a really powerful and impactful webinar. When the reality is your best prospect, the one that runs a multiple $1 million company in the industry you serve, is busy, right? They're a type A personality. They're too busy to probably sit on your hour-long workshop, but they will register for it. So use that as an opportunity to catch their attention and to shortcut them straight to appointment. Type yes in the chat if you'll do that. Don't even sweat. Yeah, we're going to do good workshops. We're going to create great content. We're going to make great slides. But if all you did was come up with cool topics every single month, sent emails out, and then say, hey, that's going to be great, but let's schedule a time now, you will win. Awesome. I see a lot of you guys saying, yes, makes sense. Perfect. All right, good. That's making sense for everybody. So that's first and foremost, we got to set up that little two-step process where somebody can register in and then get to that opportunity shortcut. Number two is we've got to promote the webinar, right? And we can do this in a lot of different ways. Like I said, we've all got our email database, our cold emails, and the people that have opted in, and ideally the associations that we've become part of. We want to send a series of emails from a couple of different angles to say, hey, this webinar's coming up. Here's why you want to attend. Here's an example of the results you can get when you learn this concept. We're going to promote it via email. We're going to promote it on social media. And so this would be your company page, your personal profiles, if you're using this for your own agency branding, which I highly recommend, and then promoted posts as well. We can use our retargeted audiences and say, hey, webinar coming up Thursday at 3 o'clock. We're going to be talking about this topic. And then if you've got an appointment setting team, not all of us do, or if you've got not a lot of client flow and you need to really get some activity going, you can call, like literally call your list. Hey, I'm doing a workshop on Thursday. Wanted to make sure you knew about it. That sometimes is easier than straight up calling and asking for an appointment. There's just an easier opportunity to just call your list, invite them to the workshop, and or backdoor social messaging. We're going to promote the workshop. And then number three is we're going to show up and we're going to provide good value, right? We do need to make sure that the content is good, because when it's good content, now you've got something cool to syndicate. Now, when somebody does see it, not everybody will, but the people that do see it, they're like, wow, that was awesome. That was super valuable. And you can do it on a variety of different topics. I know a lot of people are like, they're like, I don't know what I would even do a webinar on. I would mix it up. Take the most fundamental thing that you do in your agency. And most of us, we do websites and we do SEO and we do Google Maps optimization and we do paid advertising and meta advertising. We do marketing automation. Take those topics and just apply it to your industry, apply it to your niche. And don't feel like it needs to be a heavy sale, because we want to use this as a marketing asset. Actually show up and give great value. But if you're going to talk about SEO, give them the playbook, how to set up the pages, how to do the title tags and the H1 tags and the meta descriptions and how you build links and how you build citations. Show up and add value. Does anybody feel stuck on the topic, or do you feel like topically, like you can come up with topics? And I'm just talking about one per month, come up with a unique topic. And what's cool is you can rotate it every single year. You can use the same 10 to 12 workshops, and just now there's the 2026 version. Now's the 2027 version. Now there's the 2028 version, because these things are changing so quickly. Jennifer says, I would love some topic ideas. Yeah, in your workbook, I've given you the ones that we've found to be most beneficial. Monica's asking, are these free webinars? I would say for you, you could probably charge for it because you've already established yourself as an expert in the space. If you're just getting started with this type of content, I would say to do it for free. And that's what we do today. Like even for Plumbing HVAC SEO, we do all of those webinars for free because, again, we want to be able to promote it. We want to be able to load it up and put the full recording out there and all the short clips of it. Are there slides for these in the workbook? Yes, Michael, actually, I did include a variety of those for you guys. So if you look in your workbook and you look down to where it says presentation swipe file, these are the ones, right? So the overall internet marketing plan has been super beneficial. We run that every year. We run a version of it every quarter because we could say, hey, you're Q2, you're Q3, you're Q4. Let's build your marketing plan. And we're just walking them through in that workshop. Like we're walking them through what's the goal, how many leads do you need in order to get there, what's your marketing mix need to look like, and hey, if you want some help, we can do that for you. And then we get the more specific ones like how to set up your website in whatever niche you serve for maximum conversion, right? And then we've got the new SEO GEO formula, like how to make sure your website comes up. Is there a workbook? Yes, there is a workbook. I'll drop the link in here for you, Monica. I think you might have logged in a little bit late, but that'll get you to the workbook for that. And that's where these presentations are there. And then so for each one of these, you've got the actual Google Slides. And I'll walk you through, how to modify this. And there's a whole step-by-step on how to modify these for your particular niche. The actual slides. And then you've also got the modifiable files. So you can change this to your branding and make it super easy. basically for any of these presentations, there's a cover slide and there's an internal slide, and there's some basic branding components. And then you're going to want to infuse your stories, and you want to infuse your examples, and you want to infuse your client data. And that's what really makes it super unique to you and to your business. And then there's also the actual copy for each of these. So for each of these, if you aren't going to use the high level snapshot that we provided, you can come in here and see, okay, like what would I send in the emails in order to come up with the promotional copy? And in today's day, take this exact thing, put it into ChatGPT or to Claude and say, hey, help me create the promotional sequence for this particular workshop. Awesome. All right. That was a good question. I think I went on a tangent there, but the topics, once per month, find a topic that's relevant and useful to your industry and show up and create great value. So I already covered this. Number 5, the way that you show up on your workshops is important. Don't treat it like you're just recording a video. The whole cool thing is like when you get somebody on the workshop, you can engage with them. You can answer their questions. You can get them to talk and to connect. Nick, if that snapshot's giving you an issue, let me see. I'm going to come back to what I was saying there, but I just want to make sure you guys have the right link for the snapshot. It should be this. That should bring in the snapshot with the actual funnel and the workflows. Let me know if that doesn't work for you. And we're going to get into some of that stuff in a couple minutes. The other thing when it comes to your workshops that are super important, get them to, like I've done today. I've asked you to press 1. I've asked you to comment. I've asked you to have your webcams on. That keeps people engaged. That keeps people paying attention. The other thing is to show real examples and data. When you're talking about SEO, that can get very technical heavy. When you're talking about websites and paid ads, the thing that's going to make it influential, the thing that's going to make your prospect watching the workshop or participating in the workshop be like, wow, I need to hire Jeff, because obviously Jeff knows how to do this for my industry, is the fact that you're showing, here's one of my clients, here's the tracking data, here's the results that we've gotten. And you take the content with the case study data, and that makes you undeniable. It makes it super productive. And then make sure that you're seeding your CTA, your call to action, not only at the end. I'm just going to jump into this real quick visually so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. So this is our SEO formula training, right? And so we would start off by welcoming them, letting them know there's a great workbook. So they're like, okay, cool. There's a cool workbook for this. Looking at the big picture digital marketing strategy model that we're going to execute for them. See a little bit of, okay, here's what we do and why you should listen to me as an expert in this particular space. And then usually before I get all the way into the topic, so this is the first 5 minutes, I say, and this is what we do. We're on a mission to help 1,000 plumbing, HVAC, home service companies triple their sales by getting their internet marketing right. And if you're at all interested in having us do an evaluation of your current online marketing strategy, because you're on here live, I'd be willing to do that completely free of charge. All you have to do is go to plumberseo.net/schedule. And so I'm seeding that call to action, like in the first 5 minutes, knowing that not everyone's going to sit in my entire workshop, and then not everyone's going to watch the entire replay, but they'll probably catch that beginning portion of it. And then as you're going through, and I'm just using this not for this particular workshop, but just to paint the picture, you sell them on the topic, you sell them on why it's important, but then show visuals. So if I pop in here real quick, oops, it's going to be too big. Hold on. Sorry about that. Let me just do it this. No. Hello. Presenter view. So if I say, all right, here's one of our clients, the Meridian Company, and you can see they come up really well. And I might pull up a Google browser bar just to show like, hey, look where they come up for all of these different keywords and all of these different things and how they come up on ChatGPT. Don't forget, if you're talking SEO right now and you're not bringing up generative search and you're not showing some examples of your clients coming up in generative search, they're going to think you're not paying attention. And that's always, if you're talking about SEO, bring that up as well. But this is where it starts to land, right? Because you could say, so here's the client, you can see this is where they rank, and this is the data. This is what we're tracking. We know how much they spent, 8,000. We know how many leads they got, 417, and their average cost per lead is $19 per lead. So as you're talking about a topic, be sure you pull up whatever data you have. If you don't have like actual tracked results, be sure you're bridging it back to real examples and where that kind of fits in. So just wanted to paint that mental model for you. And I do that throughout. So for if I'm talking about 6 different components of SEO, you'll see like for every couple of modules, for every couple of blocks, I share an example. Obviously, here's one of our clients' ladies, and you can see they come up in this area, and I try to infuse the actual data. Like, here's how much they spend, and here's how many leads they got, and their average cost per lead. So when I say infuse stories, that's what you want to do. And then your call to action, like really stack the value of what it is that they're going to get if they meet with you. And so if you're talking about rankings and you're talking about keyword lists, you could say, hey, you should get a list and run yourself and see where you come up in Google, as well as Bing, as well as generative engines, and to let them realize that sounds like a lot of work and it's going to be a hassle and they probably aren't going to do it right. I'd say one of the things we'll do for you since you're on today's workshop is we already invested these tools. We've already done all of the research. We know exactly what the most commonly searched keywords are. What we'll do is we'll actually give you that list of keywords for your market and then run an analysis to show you exactly where you're coming up today. And if it's great, we'll show you that. But if there's room for improvement and there's things you're not coming up for, we'll be able to show you that as well. When we meet, we're going to run that analysis. We'll show you exactly where you're at today, exactly where there's room for improvement. And again, because you're on here today, you can do that completely free of charge by going to plumberseo.net/schedule. I just wanted to walk you through some of the language patterns and how we're able to get people to stay with the workshop, but then also see examples and be like, they seem like they actually know what they're doing. They've got proven results, and then sell them on the next step without feeling like it's a pitch-based webinar. Just give me a helpful in the chat if that's helpful at all to hear some of the language patterns for that. Kieran's saying, do you use scripts, polished webinar, or not? I don't use any scripts. I've never used a script for this. I use bullets, so I'll have my slides up and it drives. I'm not going to read these bullets one by one as I go, but it prompts my memory. Okay, here I'm talking about this now. I'm talking about that there. Excellent. Okay, good. Some good feedback there. Glad I spent a little bit of time on that, kind of what that means, engage, show real examples and data, and then see the CTA. The other really cool thing, since we're doing webinars every single month, is might as well get high quality capture. And so if you're doing these webinars, the easy thing is to just turn on Zoom and hit record. But what I found is the quality of the recording that you get out of Zoom is not very good. Like the audio is not great. The quality of the actual video file, even if you've upgraded to the top download, isn't great. And we recently started recording via Descript. And yes, while you're engaging with your live audience on Zoom, have a Descript running in the background, record your screen, whatever your frame is, and your tab that you're actually showing throughout the workshop. And what you get after the workshop, in addition to your long Zoom recording, is a really high quality video file that you can use. And it makes the entire syndication process so much better because once it's done in Descript, you can use the AI editing capture to add stereo sound, remove filler words, do color correction, edit based on the actual text that you said in the script. Try Descript if you're using this in some way today. And then it's so easy to grab the full transcript right from there and load that into chat or load that into Claude, and then it can go and create so many assets. Yeah, Jennifer, Riverside. So Riverside, I love for podcasts. You can do it for webinars. It's a little bit less interactive for people that come on Riverside. So I prefer to use Riverside for our podcasts, and then I use Descript for the actual recording of the webinar and the workshop. Let's see. Michael says, curious if you have utilized content from a live webinar and then created evergreen webinar for a client. Our niche is ophthalmology. We already do live monthly webinars for our clients to help patients. You definitely could. And there's lots of tools nowadays where you can set up evergreen. If you're going to do the same topic and you're going to use it again and again, absolutely, you could do that. For me, the reason we do the live monthly webinar and rotate the topic is because I can pull in like my existing database and invite them again. And then I've also got new things that I can load up and that I can syndicate. All right. So once the webinar is done, we want to make sure we follow up effectively. And so this is a missed component in a lot of cases. Like most agencies, if they do a workshop, I see they'll send an email, like one email out, and maybe they'll load it up in one place and that's it. But there's a lot of magic in sending the replay. And if you've got an SDR team, calling everybody, whether they were on the workshop or not, whether they attended or they didn't. Hey, we just wrapped up the workshop on XYZ topic. Just wanted to check in. Did you have any questions? One of the things we offered was to schedule this one-to-one analysis. Did you want to go ahead and schedule that now? We find just because we actually did the workshop and because they actually saw the emails about it, they're more receptive to those calls. Now, if you don't have an SDR team, this isn't something you're doing today, don't feel pressure to do that. You could absolutely skip that completely, but there is a +1 to doing that calling behind the people that actually register for the workshop. And then number 5, and this is really where the magic is with these workshops, is to syndicate the content, right? Every time we're going to record on Descript, we're going to record on Zoom, ideally take the higher quality file that comes from Descript, we'll load the whole thing up on YouTube with a nice thumbnail, with a great description that you can have written directly from ChatGPT or Claude, then create a blog post on your website that has the embedded video, that has the long form show notes, that has all of the takeaways from the transcript. And you used to spend a lot of time doing that. Today, you can have that done in 3 minutes. And it's very authentic because it's pulling directly from what you actually said in the workshop. It's pulling the actual case studies that you referenced on the workshop. And it becomes very keyword rich, organic content. From there, I like to make it a podcast episode as well. So take the audio file, which Descript can help you create a very high-end audio file, and you're going to load that up. I say iTunes, but really whatever podcast syndication platform you use gives you a way to get that out. Let me see. Nate said, is there any reason why not don't use Descript to create the short clips? Yeah, you can definitely, it creates it. It takes a little, they create some short clips for you. And if you've got editing skills or you've got an editor, keep it right there. A lot of us, it's a little more cumbersome. And that's where throwing it into Opus Pro, you can just take the YouTube file and it creates a bunch of short clips that are pretty good. It finds the viral hooks from the long form video that you did. Let's see, Jennifer, Descript, in my experience, doesn't create great. Yeah, Riverside is better for those short clips. I agree. And Opus is very good because it listens to the entire transcript and then it runs it through a viral algorithm to figure out what did you say in that hour-long thing or that hour, or however long it was. It's got an opening hook that's relevant. That's going to work well for short form content. It's just a great +1. It doesn't take much extra time. So we want to make sure we syndicate that. And then what this can look like, once you've got it fully syndicated out, this is where I'd love for you guys all to be on a monthly basis, where you're emailing the database about the workshop. Some people are registering, they're moving straight to appointment. Some people are registering and they're showing up and they're engaging with you and they're like, wow, that was amazing. But then there's a lot of people that are just going to watch the recording or watch the short clips after the fact. So we take that long form and it comes out to a bunch of short form clips on the back end. We post the long form and the links to it on social media. We send an email blast about it. And then we load the full recording up on YouTube. In addition to, if you're using one of these platforms, you can push it out live, the podcast, the show notes, the whole 9 yards. And I've given you guys this visual, but conceptually, is that clear that we can do one piece of content and we can create all of this throw off value content from it, assuming it's a good workshop, assuming you've actually added something of value to the world. Type clear in the chat if that is clear, if that makes sense. Let's see. Do you create this at the beginning of the month, pre-webinar, so that the content pushes before the webinar? No, not necessarily. So what you would create in advance is, and we'll talk about this in the actual step-by-step here in a minute. You're going to pick your topic. You're going to put the date. You're going to come up with the graphic, and that's going to be all promo. From there, once it's done, you're going to run it through the syndication process, and that's going to create all of the other assets that come on the back end of this. Isaac, is there a course that shows the best camera setup, lighting, and other hacks? I do have in the member portal, Isaac, there's the training, how to pip your Zoom. And then for the rest of you guys, I'll share the gear guide that we have, which there's a spectrum, right? In my case, I've got a teleprompter in front of me. I've got a DSLR camera. I've got lights. I've got the vibe board. And for a lot of us, that's overkill. But if you have a decent webcam, you've got a decent like lavalier style mic. I use these. Audio is good enough. And then you've got lighting that doesn't look like garbage. Your output's going to be that much better. So remind me, Isaac, to point you to that link. And for anybody else that needs it, I'll send the gear guide. And then step number six is we want to roll out a new webinar every month, right? This doesn't work in a vacuum. Doing one workshop ever isn't going to do anything for you. Doing this every single month, where you're like, okay, I know I'm going to build this into my process. I'm going to build this into my routine. You're emailing the database. You're creating great content. You're forcing yourself to become a better thought leader because you're creating the slides. You're coming up with the examples and the case studies, and you create all of this amazing syndicated content. Type monthly. If you'll commit to do this every single month, like clockwork, I promise you, if you do, you're going to start to become thought of as a prolific thought leader in your space. Awesome. I see a bunch of you guys typing monthly. That's great. I'm going to grab the gear guide because a couple of you guys were asking about it. So this gear guide, what I did was I had the videographer that set up my setup, put in like the links, and this isn't affiliate stuff. I could care less, but this is the camera that I use. This is the adapter so that I can take the DSLR and bring it in, how I hardwire it, all of that stuff. But then I also asked him to create like if you don't want to spend $7,000, like what's the lowest cost, high quality outcome that you can create? And so it's like less expensive options that you could in place. So there's like a good, better, best for all of this stuff. I'll just drop it into the chat. Hopefully that's helpful for some of you. Okay. Nick says, we will cover through webinar funnel metrics and CAC, how much to spend daily. I can talk about that briefly. For Q1 presentation, would those be done like a monthly? Yeah. So the specifically topical webinar on the quarterly planning is you would do it either like the week that the new quarter starts or the week after it ends. And so at the beginning of the year, that's the biggest drive. Everyone's, okay, it's new year. I want to build my new plan. And so in December and in January, you can be saying, hey, let's build your 2020 next plan, right? Whatever the year is, and you walk them through it. And then at the end of each quarter, that's also a shift point for a lot of your clients and prospects where they're like, I don't know, I'm not hitting my goals. Like the agency I'm with today isn't really generating results. And so you can be the one to say, hey, let's build your Q4 plan to close the year strong, let's just say. And then you can use that, basically that same framework, that same approach where you're helping them set the goals, set the targets, figure out their average cost per lead, how they're going to distribute their spend, and then all of the key things that your program does that helps them build the plan, but also makes them be like, okay, the logical choice is I need to hire Monica's agency because she's got this figured out for this particular space. Our setup here, and then we're going to get into some specifics. I'm going to walk you through actual workbook and how to pull in the snapshot and everything. But we do the live webinar on Zoom because I like to be able to see your faces and I like to see our prospects' faces. So like Jeff and Carolyn and Mary, like being on Zoom, we can have this two-way conversation. You can easily chat with me and we can have a dialogue, but then I'm recording it on Descript. And I record both because sometimes Descript, something happens and I don't have the file, but I've got the Zoom backup as a worst case scenario. But the quality of your Descript recording is HD, right? And you can use it not just for the long, but for the short clips much better. If you're trying to create short clips from your Zoom export that gets loaded onto YouTube, and then you're making short clips from that, it doesn't look high quality. And it almost has a negative impact instead of a positive. Our workflow, like the actual registration, show up, confirmation, all of that we do in high level today. In the past, we used Keap or Infusionsoft. Now we've got all of it built and we just clone the funnel and then we clone the workflow. We update the tags and it's all driven through high level. And then we syndicate. I'm going to give you guys the entire syndication playbook here. And when I say syndication playbook, this is the literal training that are the steps that my team follows when they're like, okay, webinar's done. What's our next step? How do we email it out? How do we slice this up? How do we get it out there? Okay. And I'm not going to get into this checklist because it's all in your workbook. So let's get into the workbook now. Let's see. Do you have both Descript and Zoom running? Jennifer, yeah, we do. Yep. So I'll definitely be recording on Zoom and then I'll be recording on Descript as well. That way I've got both files. But Descript, the camera from Descript is synced to the one that's the same one I'm looking at throughout the entire webinar. So it's basically just creating another higher quality video file. All right. Feel free to ask your questions because I'm going to go through this checklist now. But if you've got specific questions, I'd love to answer those for you as we go. Okay. So I asked you guys all to commit to the monthly webinar. And a lot of you guys said yes to that. What I want you to do now is let's actually pick a date. Let's pick a time. Let's pick our next workshop. So everyone make a copy of the workbook and it should open in another tab. Just type open for me when you've got a fresh, clean version that you've opened up. Open. All right, good. Here's what I want you to do. Pick your topic. And you know what? You can choose a completely different topic. The ones I've provided for you guys are how to set up your website for maximum conversion, the new SEO formula where you can talk about AEO and GEO, how to accelerate your lead flow with paid ads, how to win with local service ads, how to get ranked on the Google Maps. Or you can just hit enter and say, I'm going to pick a different topic. Pick your topic for whatever one you're going to do. And I want you to do this sometime in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Integrating Descript with Zoom. Any technical thing you need to know to make that happen? Not really. You can set it up so that on Descript, it will download your file from Zoom. You still have a quality issue there. So I don't actually integrate it. I literally just have the script running on my desktop. And before I start the webinar, I hit record, I pick my mic, and it's recording while the webinar is going. It's recording my face and it's recording my screen. That way I've got that recording, and then I've also got the Zoom recording. So you don't really need to do an integration. You just got both of those running in simultaneous. All right, I want to know which topic you guys picked. Drop into the chat for me. What's the topic? If you came up with something totally different, that's fine, right? If you came up with the meta ads formula or something like that, whatever you came up with, drop that into the chat. This is where we're getting to workshop mode, guys. Funnel metrics, says Nick. I love it. Mary, email marketing masterclass. Okay, very cool. The rest of you, let's do our work, right? If you don't drop something in the chat for me, I'll feel like you're just listening, and that's not good. We're here to do some work. Any prompts to generate slide content? I could talk about that a little bit. Struggling with the length of the webinar. So usually 45 minutes to an hour is good. 45 minutes, who you are, why the topic's important, actually teach, actually seed case studies, and then open up for Q&A. Mike, a question about having, let me go back up. Having guest subject matter on your webinar. I'm fine with it. I think that if you're trying to position yourself, Michael, and I know you work with LASIK practices, you could bring in experts that are talking about whatever it is they talk about, and you'll get some attention. But I think for this monthly webinar method, what we're trying to do is position you as the thought leader with the proven results in your industry and interview people, do separate workshops, but at least once a month, do something where you're showing up, you're teaching, you're edifying. That builds that expert status for you, and it gives you all that content that you can syndicate out. That's just my impression and my opinion. Feel free to take it what you like. Just need to do it. So paid ads, says Social Blast, the revenue engine. I love it. Okay, good. We've picked some topics. That's great. Next thing I want you to do is to pick the date. And what I found, there's anomalies in every industry. For me personally, my preference is Wednesday or Thursday at 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern time. It seems like that's a good day in the week where you can do some emails throughout the week to bring it. And then you can, at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, you're working with all the time zones, East to West Coast, where it doesn't interfere with people's time. So pick a day and time. That's just what we found works best. All right, Isabel picked May 21st at 10. Fantastic. Jess says he's going to do local search success. All right. Michael King's going to do May 20th at 12. Fantastic. Drop me some dates, guys. I want to make sure we're building something here. And the reason I want you to pick the date now is because there's 2 types of learning. There's just-in-case learning and there's just-in-time learning. And what most of us do is just-in-case learning, which is I'm going to go on this training on how to do webinars and workshops for my niche. I'm going to learn about how to present, and I'm going to learn about how to set up the workshop, just in case one day I wind up doing a webinar, right? And that is pretty useless. Just-in-time learning is, all right, I've set a date, like a lot of you guys did, Jeff. I set a date for May 27th. I'm going to do my workshop. And now you have to just-in-time have that deadline. Now I've got to figure out my slides. I got to figure out my promo sequence. I got to figure out how to set up the recording. Always better to do just in time versus just in case. Joe's going to do the second Wednesday of each month at 2 p.m. I love that. So he's committing to the monthly frequency, and that's a great way. I highly recommend, don't just pick one. There's no reason you can't go in right now and go to Google, assuming you use Calendar, go to Google Calendar, and you can see like once a month, block it in to the calendar. And they like, you don't set, all right, here's one this month, and then here's one next month. Literally go in and say, okay, I'm going to do let's say if I was going to do this Thursday every month, webinar. And then when you set the date, set it as a monthly on the first or the third or the second Thursday of every month at 1 o'clock. Now you've actually compounded, right? Now you've got, okay, I've locked this in and it's going to happen every single month. If 1 month you've got a vacation or you've got a birthday, you've got something else, just change that one instance to the month forward. Joe, I'm glad you did that. Super helpful. Who's gonna put in a recurring time block for this? Type recurring in the chat. If you're doing, that's a power move. All right. Love it. Okay. So we got a recurring monthly webinar going. The next thing you're going to want to do, and I'm not going to, what's this? I'm not going to walk you through all the steps because some of you already do this very well. You've already got your snapshot built in. You've already got everything rocking and rolling. I'm just going to show you, like when you click there, it'll ask you to import the snapshot and it'll import it into your high level account. And then if you want to see what's in there, you can look at the snapshot by clicking on it and you can see the fields that are going to come in. You can see the form, you can see the funnels. And so there's a bunch of little moving parts and a bunch of little workflows that'll come in when you import that. Proceed with caution, right? If you have a high level person that does this stuff for you, definitely tap them on the shoulder. But if you scroll down, I've given you like every step of this process. We're not going to do it right now because that would be boring for everybody. But from how to import it to how to modify your workflow, to how to update your slides, to how to use the Canva cover and the Canva internal graphic, it's all there. And if you can follow instructions and you can paint by numbers, you can definitely pull this in and have it ready way in time for your next workshop. Type clear if you're clear on that part. And if you get stuck, feel free to reach out to me. I can definitely point you to somebody that can help you solve the problem. All right, clear. We're clear on that. Like I said earlier, the actual presentation files are over here in this tab. Members, it's in the member portal with additional stuff. But I wanted to make sure for those of you that aren't members that are on with us today, you've got access to some of these presentation files and templates that you can use as a point of reference. And then after the workshop, so the workshop's done, this is the syndication playbook that you can step by step. Okay, I got to grab the video and then I've got to edit it a little bit. And then I've got to modify because you maybe use different tools. Or you like use different ways of putting this stuff together. But this is the checklist step-by-step process. And it says Otter, but I know I'm using Descript for that today. Update to whatever it is that is your current modality that would make sense for you. And that's the flow. I would love to open up for any questions. Like, where do you feel like you're going to get stuck on this? Where have you felt like you've tried this in the past and just didn't get what you were looking for? Where are your fears? What are your concerns? And what are your looming questions? Okay, Alejandro says, what's the ideal length? Between 45 minutes to an hour, typically. Assuming this is going to your prospects in your industry, my typical workshop is about an hour, but I tend to go a little bit longer with pulling up like separate tabs. If you're going to presentation mode the whole time, like where you're going through slides, it should only be like 30 to 45 minutes. You have to break it up. And so what I mean by that is you talk for a little bit and then you show an example and then you open another tab and you're like, hey, look, here's the client. Here's the website. Hey, does anybody want to use their website as a guinea pig? And you can do that for websites. Hey, pull up your website. Oh, this is cool. Or this is where there's room for improvement. If it's SEO, you can say, hey, let's do everybody real quick, see how your site speed is. And then you say, hey, anybody want to drop their link in here so I can use it as a point of reference? That's where you start to get to like about an hour because you're teaching, but then you're also showing, and then you're getting examples as you go. Great question. Let's see, Carm says, my trouble is getting people to show up. I just feel defeated when there's only one or two. This is common. And so even like our last workshop, and we've been doing this for a long time, I think we only have 22 people on it. And I can see how that would be frustrating because it's, man, I'm sending these emails. I'm trying to show up for the workshop. Nobody's there. Don't let that slow you down, right? Because as you create the content, as you show up, you're improving. You're creating great content that you can put out. And people that engage with you is going to increase over time. So even if one person showed up, that's still, it forced you to create the content. Even if no one showed up, at least you can record it. And the best example of that I can think of in recent terms is Jim Ali from Roofer Marketers. Same niche as you, Clark. And so when Jim started, I didn't know how long ago it was, when he started doing his webinars, the first one that he did, and he works in roofing, and I think they were doing like $7,000 a month of recurring revenue, showed up, promoted it, and there was one person on. And he was like, okay, what do I do now? Fortunately, it was a webinar. It wasn't a meeting like this. And so you couldn't really see that there was nobody else there. Recorded it, loaded it up on YouTube, and that single video wound up with like tens of thousands of views over the last couple of years. And if you fast forward, they did that every month. They did a lot of the stuff in the seven-figure range with publishing their book and doing all of the different things. They grew to over $450,000 in monthly recurring revenue and sold the agency. And he's already sold that, and now he's doing other things. But even if no one shows up, you're still creating value. You're still touching your database. You're still forcing yourself to create content. So don't even sweat it. My only tip, though, would be spotlight yourself. Like right now, if you've got 2 people in, spotlight yourself, or maybe consider using the webinar format where people can't see how many people are on there live, because that could be awkward if you had one person and they're like, okay, he's doing this workshop just for me. So just be aware of that. All right. Michael King says, what about Jeff's question? You may have missed it. Do you get less attendance on the last week of the month? I haven't, but our niche is home services. So I would test it. If you feel like maybe you're an auto repair, you're like an industry where everything closes on the last week, play with it. I would say usually I'm doing the 3rd Wednesday or Thursday of every single month, just like Joe Dominic just said. And that's our pattern. Sometimes I'll move it a week earlier. Sometimes I'll move it a week later, depending upon what we've got going on that month. Jeff, thanks for asking that. And then Michael, thanks for bringing it back up. Alejandro, when it comes to topics, content, how do you balance giving value without giving away the whole plan? My preference is to give away the farm, because the information that whatever it is you do for your clients today is ubiquitous, right? It's everywhere. They can find it by searching ChatGPT, by searching Claude, by reading books, by reading the latest blog posts. And if you're trying to hold to yourself like, oh, I've got this secret thing that we do for our clients, I don't want them to know it, your content's not going to be super good. It's not going to be very relevant. To the extent that you can give them the exact step-by-step, here's exactly what we do, exactly how we do it, the things that you do that aren't commonly known and commonly being implemented, that's how your content becomes magnetic. That's also how people are like, wow, this person really understands what's going on. They've got the formula. And you'll find when you start to get to that place, most of your clients, most of the people that you might want to serve in your niche, they don't want to do it themselves. They're going to be like, that's a lot. There's a lot of moving parts there, and a lot of steps there. I can't do that. And so that leads them to one of 2 options. Either I'm not going to do it at all, or I guess I should hire this individual because they've obviously got it figured out. And that's, you want your content to be that good and that relevant and that specific that they're like, screw it, I'm hiring, he's got it figured out. So I would massively caution against trying to say, hey, I'm just going to give them the little high level information and hopefully it's enough that they find it useful, because that's not useful for anybody. It's a great question. Oh, let's see what the fault was. Somebody said this, great question. All right, let's see. I think if you give a lot of content, the realization is most people won't do it all, or they'll get overwhelmed and they know to choose you to handle it. Exactly right. Yep, exactly right. Let's see. Scott, I'm concerned my team will invest a lot of time and get little to no leads from this. No one comes, nobody opens emails, topics aren't relevant. I want to get this. I'm just skeptical. I echo the give away the whole plan. Yeah. So Scott, don't try to streamline it So it's not a massive amount of time. And that's where using the swipes and deploys are useful. It's like your investment in time, once you've got a good team in place, and ideally you start to use AI agents to help you with some of this stuff, is what's my topic this month? And what's the date that I'm going to do it? And ideally you can then hand that off, and your team then quickly goes, all right, let's make the cover graphic. Let's come up with the promotional copy. Let's drop it into the high level workflow, and let's hit send. And then ideally they would set up some promoted posts on social media and some ads. And then your exposure to this is obviously look at your slides, make sure you feel confident with what you're covering, make sure that it's got some of your actual client case studies, and then showing up and adding value. Yeah, you can't let this be like a full-time person that's doing just this, because the juice isn't worth the squeeze. But if you do it efficiently, and you say, I want to block an hour once per month, maybe an hour and a half where I show up, I create content, and then everything else happens without me, that makes, trust me, even if nobody feels like they're watching your recording, even if nobody feels like they're coming on live, you're creating a ripple that is going to lead to you being more expert status, more clients on a consistent basis, and more authority in the industry. Mike says, will the 1 to 2 people that show up think you suck? With anything that you do in life, there's the fear that, like, what if I'm terrible? What if nobody likes what I'm saying? And the only way you get through that fear is you do it. And the only way that you go from being terrible to actually being good is putting in the reps, right? Doing it badly a couple times until you get better. Think about anything that you've ever learned to do, whether it was playing a sport like playing tennis or windsurfing or recording content or doing SEO. There was a period of time where you did suck at it, right? And the only way that you learned it was by doing it, right? And so if you look at my first webinars and my first videos for Plumber SEO, scroll through my YouTube channel, they were really bad, right? And if you're not a little bit embarrassed by your first iteration, you're doing something wrong. So hopefully that helps. It reframes that thought for you. You're going to have to be bad before you can be good. Do you use the meeting function or the webinar function? Says Social Blast. I prefer to use the meeting function. So as an example, this meeting we're doing right now, where I can see you guys' faces and you guys are engaging with me on chat, and then you can see each other and you can chat with each other, that's meeting, right? And you can see there's 60 people on here and we're having a live dialogue, and you, like, if you wanted to unmute, you could. That's a great way to do it. If you're only going to have 1 or 2 people, which is okay, like we just talked about, you probably want to use the webinar function, because then you can show up and you can engage with them on chat, but they wouldn't know that they're the only other person on the workshop potentially. So I think there is you want to have at least 5 people on to make it feel like, okay, this is fresh content being generated in a live environment. Karen, do you have a replay on public, or you gatekeep it? I would say put it out there, right? Like, the whole point of this monthly webinar method is that we're going to put it up publicly and we're going to syndicate it to the fullest extent possible. And so if you look at the syndication playbook, we're taking the full recording, we're not gating it, we're emailing it about it a couple of times, and we're putting it out there. We're taking the actual Google Doc or the file that was created, we're putting it out there for the agency. For this workshop specifically, this is a member content session, so it won't be loaded publicly. But for plumbing and HVAC SEO stuff that we do, that's out there. Let's see. Monica says, yeah, but what if they can see no one else? Yeah, exactly. That's where you want to use a webinar. Star, I need help with a need. Was previously selling coaches and want to try your program. Star, and for those of you that are on here that aren't members, I'm going to set up a breakout room. If you're interested in having a conversation about the program and niche selection, some of that stuff, we can definitely get into that. Nick, conversion metrics. What are you seeing? Number of opt-ins, number of attendees, number of show-offs. What's healthy? Nick, it really depends upon how long you've been doing it. It depends upon how big your list is. It depends upon your industry. I would say right now, mainly we're promoting this to our list. And so we'll send it out to the list with a couple of emails. We'll usually get like 75 to 100 that register. We'll send the follow-up reminder sequences, the text reminders, the add to event stuff, which is all in your playbook here. And then we'll have 25 or 30 people attend live. I don't recommend trying to lean directly into cold Facebook ads for this, because your average cost per opt-in is going to be super high. You'd be better running ads to a lead magnet, running ads directly to appointment, and then using this as a nurture strategy for your email list, as well as if you're running ads to it, put like a $500 budget to your retargeted audience. And then you're going to be paying like $30 to $35 per registration. Hopefully that helps. Let's see, Carm. I saw Carm. Good news is every single new client has been on my webinar, Omnipresent. That's right. So Carm just mentioned, I do these webinars, I have 1 or 2 people show up. I feel embarrassed, right? But if 1 or 2 of those people become a client, then it's a win, right? It's a massive win for you and for your company. Good. GHL secret sauce, give the value and implement. Let's see. Jerry, what about the pre-recording the webinar and pitch it as an on-demand webinar where they can watch it any time? How would you advertise that? Jerry, I'm not a fan of that approach, because if you're only getting a couple of people to watch it live, very few are going to watch it on the pre-recorded version. The whole, this day at this time, I'm going to be teaching this topic, creates a reason for them to stop what they're doing and show up and participate. And so you lose that if you just do it as a pre-recorded on-demand style training. So I would always say, pick a date, pick a time, show up live, have the conversation, create that content, and then it can live as an evergreen asset that you drive people to. And you could advertise that recording and whatever the assets that were that developed for it as well. Michael, random technical question. Do you prefer using the chat on Zoom versus Q&A? I prefer the chat. That seems like it's easiest. I can scroll through and see what's going on, but I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to handle that. Karen, do you gatekeep the replay for leads? No, put it out there. Now, usually if they're already on my list, I'm saying, hey, in case you missed it, here's a recording of the SEO formula or whatever it was, go here to watch. And I'm driving them straight to their dedicated replay page where it's got the recording at the top. And then below that, it's like, hey, if you want help implementing this, let's schedule a time. That way we can move them down that track. If you're going to run ads to it after the fact as like an evergreen type of thing, you could definitely gatekeep it a little bit. I'm just going to show you what that looks like, because I think I showed all of this stuff, but so we get the registration page, the confirmation page, and then the replay page that we drive them to looks like this, right? So like they're watching it, but then right below is we're moving them to the appointment and we're selling them on why they want to schedule a time, because not everyone's going to probably sit on the replay and watch the entire thing. So while it's embedded on YouTube, in this case, we're driving them straight to the dedicated replay page that's baked into the funnel. Okay. Alejandro, what are the legalities of reposting content that depicts a person that attended the webinar? I guess you're saying if you brought them up and you had them speak during your thing, or if you hot seated them. I would say if there's any legal issues, I'm not an attorney, you don't play one on TV, take it down if they complain and snip that piece out. But I don't think that would be a massive concern. Jeff, what do you think the best background for the webinar? Studio like yours, office, does it matter in terms of professionalism? I think as long as it's clean and you're lit well, you could do any variety of things. So I wouldn't overthink it. I think your setup looks great. Look, Jeff, I'm looking at I'm just going to spotlight you real quick. So we've got, obviously this is like a virtual background of some sort. We've got the desks. That looks great. I like that. I think that works just fine. Feel free to unmute too, guys. If you want to chat real quick, you've got a question. He says, is there a way to change the meeting to a webinar last second if you only have 5 people? I don't think so. I think that the way you set it up is going to be like the emails and the link that you drove people to. So if you feel like you're only going to have a handful of people, maybe just use the webinar link right out of the gates. Mike, for those of us that might still be working for the man and your work sees your content, that's the risk I probably wouldn't play. If you're working full time for somebody, you don't want them to know that you're starting an agency moonlighting. Probably wait until you're out of that job before you start posting this kind of content. Rouge, should we keep one face for the webinars only? Can we switch between the speakers? Not sure that I understand the question. If you want to ask it again, I tend to make myself the person on the webinar, because people are, let's say like our niche is plumbing and HVAC companies. there's a brand, Plumbing and HVAC SEO, and then there's the personality behind the brand, which is Josh Nelson. And people are relatively interested to do business with the brand Plumbing and HVAC SEO. They know maybe the case studies and the examples, but they really want to deal with the person behind the business that they feel confident in, that they feel knows what they're doing, that they feel like carries the core values that they're after. And so hard not to be that you if you're the owner of the company. And the more you can put yourself out there as, hey, I'm the expert, I'm creating this content, I'm the person that you're going to do business with when you hire this company, the better. And if you're switching who it is that's on your team, that's on these webinars every single month, you kind of lose that ability to anchor on that known celebrity brand. Like you think about Apple over the years, like Apple, multi-billion-dollar company, one of the most valuable brands. You've got the Apple brand, but like the personality of Steve Jobs, people loved Apple because of Steve Jobs and his innovation, and they knew him despite the fact that there were tens of thousands of employees. Same thing when you think about X, or you think about Tesla, like they do business with that company, but the personal brand of Elon Musk is who they resonate with. And so like you want to develop that expert status in your space, and that's when you can start to command a premium. And that's why I would suggest making yourself the person on the videos. Cold Facebook was waste for us. Organic was great. Yeah. Cold Facebook, if you're running that to try and get people on your webinar, is tough. Joe, any advice when reaching out to an association list? That's a great question. Whether it's offering paid promotions, partners, or to host a webinar. I would say it's a great strategy. It's a great way to multiply the effort, right? If you're going to do it to your email list and you can get the association to do it with you, I would just reach out to the national chapter and to the local chapters, send them an email, find out like different groups do it in different ways. I know you and I are in plumbing and HVAC. They're a little bit less open to paid promotional workshops from what I've seen, but I know Tony Ricketts from Longline Marketing did this in the National Landscape Association, and he was able to pay $7,000, and they did a webinar for the entire group that worked really well. So depending upon your niche, those types of opportunities exist. And my advice would be absolutely try it, absolutely reach out. I know that Tax Pro marketers, they do continuing education workshops. So the people that attend those workshops to learn marketing are actually there because they're going to get their CEU credits in order to keep their license. And it's like a double whammy for the association and for Tax Pro marketer, obviously, because now they're front and center presenting to their ideal clients and having rapt attention. So there's lots of ways that you can play with that. The workshop method, let me see here. Okay, so that's actually a link to the member portal. Let me know which graphic you need and I'll grab it for you. Jennifer says, great stuff today. Thanks for the resources and the guidance. Have to jump. EG Pro, hey, where can I get the replay of this workshop? I just got it in 30 minutes. I will make sure to get the replay out to you guys ASAP. Outstanding job, says Michael. Worth everybody. Thank you so much. I'm glad you got value. Opus Clips. I think I've seen all the questions. Would you run Facebook lead forms for webinar generation? You could. I would think for this, you're probably, if they do a lead form for a webinar, they're going to be very low, like probability of showing up, especially if they don't know you yet. So I would suggest sending them to a landing page. Awesome. Shahian says, what's one webinar mistake that you learned from the hard way? I would say the biggest thing is like for show up, and you do want people to show up, is only sending emails for confirmation. So after someone registers for your webinar, ideally, yeah, you're going to send an email. If you can send text message like, hey, you're registered, and then also we're starting now message, you're going to get a better show up. But then also having some type of add to calendar function. We do that through add event. If it's not on their calendar, they're probably not going to show up, even if you send them dozens of emails. And so using something like whether you're going to Google Calendar and physically adding the invite, which you could do manually, you could probably do that through some type of automation these days as well, or add event. That was something that helped us a lot. And I was like, oh man, I wish I had realized that sooner. If it's not on the calendar, they're probably not going to show up. So you want to get it added to their calendar. Amazing. Awesome. You guys, great questions. If you got follow-up questions, please let me know.